enough time has passed in both the real world as well as my Persona world. You see, Persona 3 Reload came out, I don't know, months and months ago. And now Persona 3 Reload is getting a DLC episode, and depending on when you're watching this video, it could be out now or coming out soon. And of course, if you want to play the DLC, you have to beat the base game first. Now luckily for you, I am one of those people that platinumed the game. It was not fun, but I did it, so I want to give you my honest opinion. Is the Persona 3 Reload game worth your while? And then towards the end of the video, we'll talk about the Aegis episode because I got a taste of that too. But for right now, you Persona fans, kick your feet up, get some popcorn, I have plenty to talk about. Let's get started. If you don't know, the Persona 3 Reload version is the remake of the Persona original, the FES, as well as the portable. And if you were to ask if this is the definitive edition, it is, but it's not. You see, the 3 other versions of this game still has content that the Reload version does not have. So if you do care about those things, such as a female protagonist, you're not gonna find that here. However, at the same time, Atlus does believe that this is the definitive story that they want to tell. Now, of course, depending on how you would get a copy, it's going to be full price. But this Persona game does its best to mimic what another Persona game did very well. Even though this is a remake, hence why they called it Reload, because they thought it was clever, I would say that Atlus did their best to mimic Persona 5. And if you are a Persona fan or even heard about RPGs period, then you know about Persona 5. Arguably one of the best Persona games they give you providing content. But I'm not here to talk about my previous ex. Persona 3 Reload does its best to keep the essence of what the other 3 copies had, but also does its best to restyle it to make its new appearance. So if you did enjoy Persona 5, I'm sure you would enjoy Persona 3 as well. And I also need to mention that Persona 3 has a darker tone within the series. So let's break this down, starting off with the story. You start playing the game as Makoto, or whatever else you want to call him, and you end up living in a dorm with other people that have potential. While they throw around the word potential like they're going to the combine, overall it means you meet new people that have the ability to use persona, a manifestation of your soul basically. And for the most part, your job is to put an end to the dark hour, a time in which your school turns into this crazy like building and it has monsters and other Scooby-Doo stuff. You also have to go to the same place to go to school in the daytime, but whatever. You and your friends are tasked to beat these ultra bosses, and once you do, then the dark hour is just over. At least that's what you expect until there's a crazy twist. Now I must say, the story of Persona 3 really just follows you going to school and living life. Honestly, this whole destroying the dark hour really doesn't matter much. And I'm not saying that it's a bad story, it's just that's not what you're here for. You see, the thing about Persona is they emphasize you having a social life over anything else. And if you so happen to have a story in the back, I mean, that's cool. But I wouldn't say that Persona 3 does a great job emphasizing its story. You see, besides you beating these shadows that don't have a brain anyway, for the most part, your story really follows around a group named Strega, whom I also will bully later on within this video. Strega seems to have their own quirks, you could say, and I'm not talking about them using Persona either. This group is supposed to be the group that stops you whenever you try to make progress within the story. The problem is that Strega's whole backstory is kind of pushed to the side, and to me, it kind of minimizes why you would even care about him. I'd say that the story really doesn't pick up until you see the Death Arcana, the little kid inside your head that suddenly thinks he just has to destroy the world. I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe everybody thinks this way if you're super emo. Anyway, this is when the story really kicks in, as well as you realizing that your characters are in danger. I'd say the Persona does this a lot, trying to show an omni being out there that wants to kill off the world. But again, this is a part of the story and they don't give a lot of reason as to why this has to happen. So let me just say that the story for Persona 3 is mediocre at best. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever, you just won't be awing over it. What you should be awing over is social life and your characters. The friends and even enemies you have within Persona 3 Reload is where it hits. Persona has always done its best to give you stories of characters that you can care about and also witness. You see, every one of your characters that's a part of C's has some dramatic stuff going on in the background. Whether it's the character that lost her father and suddenly her mom wants to start dating again, or maybe it's the character that lost his mother to another character and now he wants to get his get back. I mean, there's all kinds of different stories, and this branches out even further to the side characters. But before I jump into them, I must say that your main cast is very enjoyable to watch. I mean, characters such as Junpei and Yuki-chan just going back and forth for no reason at all. I mean, overall, it's fun to watch, and I could say that I like these characters more than the other Persona games characters. There are for sure some characters that don't get enough time to flesh out, such as Ken, and then some other characters don't get their backstory until much later on. I don't really see a reason for why they chose to hide some characters till later in the story. Maybe it feels like you're working towards something so you don't complete everything at once. But regardless, you have a ton of characters that you can enjoy their own stories and find some type of relation to. And plus, Atlus has never been shy of showing a beach scene. I mean, you have females in the game, why would you not? Overall, these characters and their lives are what you play it for, including the other side pieces. And I'm talking about the dude that's choosing to date a teacher, which is highly illegal, but you're not saying anything because that's your boy. Or even the fat kid that chooses to hate you because he's fat, however, he realizes you're not bullying him because he's fat, so he decides to like you, and you don't care that he's fat. No matter how stupid their little side stories may be, it's still a nice pastime to watch. And I mean, some of their stories are very, very stupid. And jumping into the villain characters, I mentioned Strega before. As much as fans thought that they would do a better job explaining Strega and their backstories, they simply don't. And it honestly sucks because Strega felt like they were a grunt that had a Geodude instead of a Zubat. I mean, these characters have no purpose except to get in your way. Well, that is true except Shidori, who has a little bit more screen time. The problem is for this character, if you don't do the right thing at the right time, you're gonna miss out on the panty raid. So to be honest, I don't completely love this team, but I don't mind him either. The character that I really dislike is Yu, the loser that acts as if he's some dorm room principal and loves to crack jokes for no reason. It was way too obvious that this guy was going to be a villain. I mean, he came out of nowhere saying, here's a robot, come fight. I mean, let's be honest, nobody knows you at all, nobody likes you, you don't even like your own last name. This was a waste of a character and an opportunity. So suddenly when he changed his face out of nowhere, you don't even get a chance to get your rebuttal back. I mean, what's the point of this character if I can't give him my own 1-2? I'd argue that he is the biggest waste of a character I've ever seen, but I guess he did make you some swaggy uniforms, so I can't hate. The social aspect of making sure your bonds between characters are leveled up is also pretty fun. I do wish that they broke the norm of doing this process, maybe making more of an emphasis as to why you would want to get a max level for a character instead of just a persona. But alas, if you do max out everyone within the time span, not only you get a trophy, you just feel good about it. So I mean, I don't know, do it, what else you gonna do otherwise? Another big, huge factor I love about Persona 3 Reload is the music. I'd say that one of the biggest factors is the music amongst every one of the Persona games, mainly because they choose a different genre that really fits the mood of the game. And in this game, it does its best to have a hip-hop/pop feel, and because you can always hear the music blasting throughout the whole game, you start to love it a lot. Now, I also have to give props to the singer Azumi Takahashi because she cooked. People were big mad that the previous singer was replaced by someone that's younger and probably has a newer voice, but it's perfectly fine to get someone new. You don't necessarily have to have the old person doing the same job. Now, this whole time you've been watching this video, you've been hearing Persona 3 Reload music in the back. And for copyright reasons, I can't play it for too long. You know how that can be. But of course, I need to point out some songs that are completely spectacular. I mean, hey, just check out this opening theme song for the game. I mean, just listen to this beautiful vibe, and every song within the game I'm in love with. But there for sure are some songs that I'm kind of questioning as to what they're saying. And this really only happens when you're a true fan listening to this on Spotify when you know you shouldn't be. Here, take a listen. I'm sorry, what did you just say? Even though the song's name literally has what she's saying, it doesn't sound like that. I mean, I had to go look up the lyrics and it looked like the lyrics were wrong. It just kind of sits in my head thinking, how did you guys create this song and nobody thought it sounds like bread? I mean, the old song did not sound like this whatsoever, but maybe I'm just crazy. But whether it's an old song or a brand new song they made for this game, I think all the music is great. And as I mentioned before, Persona never fumbles on their music anyway, so there wasn't much to worry about. I could say sometimes during gameplay, especially certain moments, the music blasts a little too loud. I mean, I'm sure if you play the game, you've probably heard this note before. This note hits crazy out of nowhere. But luckily for us new 21st century gamers, we do have the ability to turn it down, so there's not much to whine about. Now, another big body aspect we need to talk about is the Persona 3 Reload gameplay. Don't forget that this is an RPG whether you love your social links or not. I say overall that Persona 3 Reload does what the other Persona games does, and it's pretty easy. The game focuses on your persona to make sure that they have abilities to hit the enemy's weakness. Every single fight you do is to find the weakness of that new shadow and make sure you can knock them out with the persona you have. To be completely honest, whether you're playing on normal difficulty or hard, it's pretty easy. I'm not saying that it's baby butt smooth, but you shouldn't be struggling too much. It's not a Souls game. Now, the reason I have to compare the difficulty is because the game Persona is based off of Shin Megami Tensei. And well, within the same year, we got SMT5's Definitive Edition. Now, the difference between a Persona game as well as an SMT5 game is SMT5 is mainly for your hard battles. You do not care about the story. I am currently playing Vengeance, almost done with it, and the story is boring. I'm not saying that it's bad, you're just not gonna care as much. But when you look at Persona, specifically Persona 3 Reload, you're gonna be here for the social stuff. Looking at P3 characters, depending on who you have in your party, they specialize in a specific attribute. It is very true that some characters on your team are simply stronger than others. For example, Akihito is specifically using electrical abilities. But soon as you see the damage and buffs he's putting out, he feels like a mainstay. And unfortunately, there's some characters that simply won't stay because their kit's simply not good enough. For the most part, the game does its best to have each and every shadow have a different weakness so you can use these characters, but then your main character is a jack of all trades, so if I can just use any ability with him, why would I need one of my side characters? Where the gameplay really peaks is when you're fighting these sub-bosses. One thing special about this is it's not just a big boss with a lot of defense, health, and attack. That's specifically what SMT does, not Persona. I'd say of doing all the RPG stuff, you're going to have the most fun fighting these bosses. And again, I'm talking about these shadow bosses, not Striker. They suck through and through. If you're looking for a good RPG game that you can really just sink your teeth into and grind, then this is going to be for you. But now without further ado, I also need to talk about what's coming out on September 10th. We are getting an extra DLC portion of the story called The Answer. This portion of the story did exist before in the previous versions of the game, however they kind of redid it. And let me give you my personal opinion about it since I've played it. At the time I'm recording this portion of the video, the DLC pack is supposed to release in a day. And since I've played a good amount of this DLC pack, I need to give you a quote-unquote warning before you buy. First off, from a story point of view, this is technically the true ending of the main story. Now, if you've gotten to this point of the video, then I'm sure you're aware of spoilers, so do not cry to me. The end of Persona 3 Reload's base game, the main character actually dies. Controversial or not, the main character Makoto is no more. So within this DLC pack, the Aegis episode, you play as her and you basically make her the main character. However, it just so happens that you're stuck on the same day looping over and over again, and Aegis just can't help but remember that her beautiful bae is gone. So basically, you're tasked to get out of this time loop. Now, if you're wondering from a player's point of view, what do you get? You just get more gameplay. A lot of gameplay, and I'm not talking about the social stuff either. I wanted to give this fair warning because some of you may buy this and not be ready for what you just purchased. The Answer DLC is basically a large amount of gameplay content. If you are looking for gameplay specifically for this RPG, then you should buy this. However, the story aspect as well as the social life stuff is really minimal, and I'm very disappointed in that, to be honest. Now, I'm not sponsored and I'm not forced to say anything nice. I really do love Persona 3 Reload, however, I cannot tell you to buy this DLC pack. Again, if you're a fan of the gameplay battling aspect, then you should probably buy it. But past that, it's not even close to other DLC content we've had in other games. So I'm just going to stop it here. I don't have too much more to review. Buy it if you want to, but that's all I got. Now then, let me give my overview of the whole Persona 3 Reload game. I'm going to say this after I started playing the previous release on Switch and other consoles, which is honestly kind of evil. Why would you give us a re-release when you know you're doing a remake anyway? I don't know. Playing this remake, I can honestly say that this is the definitive edition for me. Again, I do know that there is no female protagonist and those routes are gone. But you see, I don't need to necessarily have that to have a full grasp of what the game is trying to tell me as a story. I would argue that as an RPG, you're going to get your money's worth out of this game. For the most part in my head, I try to say $1 per hour. And if you play this game doing majority of the content, you should should be getting around that estimate. And as the base game price as well as the crazy DLC price goes down, it's going to be more affordable for other people. So while I would say that it is worth the full purchase, especially if you're an RPG fan, it's up to you. Now, when it comes to Persona games, I would not say this is my favorite. I see so many articles saying that Persona 3 is actually peak, and I can say it's very good, but for multiple reasons, it's simply not my favorite. But again, please know I am saying not my favorite. I'm not saying it is bad. Persona 3 Reload gave me those warm feelings I used to have back when I played the originals. Why do I feel like I need a pause there? And once I got through all this content, I can happily say I'm ready to put the game down. My experience and story is complete for Persona 3, and I'm honestly curious for those who played it, what do you think of the game? At this point, you would usually get one of those IGN ratings from the video, but I'm not going to be them. Just take my word for it, as an RPG type slice of life game, this is really worth your pickup. So for now, that's all I got, but I'm going to point you to another video on the channel. Thank you guys for all the love and support. I greatly appreciate it. This was a big one and took some time to make. But again, let me know what you think in the comments down below of Persona 3 Reload. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.